I'm doing fine.
Good. Are we here for a tour today?
Yes.
Awesome. Let me get you set up with a ticket. So it'll be $5 today. Okay. And then here's your ticket. So we'll take that as we go through the tour here.
All right.
All right. And then there is a treasure hunt on the back of the ticket. I can give you clues as we go through, or we can skip that. It's kind of up to you.
Okay.
All right. If we're ready, we'll start right through here in the lobby.
And what is your name?
So my name is Susie, and I will be your guide today. So we'll start right over here by this map so I can show you a few things. Okay. So this right here is a map of where this line was supposed to run. This building was built in 1910, and you can see San Angelo right there is that dot. That was going to be part of the Kansas City, Mexico, and Orient rail line. This whole line was the dream of a man named Arthur Stillwell. Unfortunately, he never completed it, but he did start up here in Kansas City. He was planning to come down through Texas and Mexico to the coast where he could meet a shipping yard and sail across the sea, but he never finished it because his contractor in Mexico was a man named Pancho Villa. So if you know who that is, you know what I'm talking about. We actually have a picture of Pancho Villa right here if you'd like to see that. So he's this man right here, and next to him is one of Mr. Stillwell's trains. Because what happened was Mr. Stillwell would send supplies down on the trains, and instead of building the tracks and the buildings, Pancho Villa blew up the trains with dynamite. So you can imagine that was pretty bad for business. Mr. Stillwell lost the entire building, the entire line actually, and this building was repossessed by the city. So as I said, it was built in 1910, and he lost it around 1912, so he didn't have it for very long. And then it was really bad for the whole town, but later in the 1920s, their economy kind of picked up again because they struck oil here in San Angelo. And so if you look at this floor was put in around that time when the Santa Fe company bought out this building. So this is in the Santa Fe style, and every little tile was individually hand laid. And I can't even imagine how long that would take, but you can tell they had a lot of money. So they did really well. They shipped freight trains, and they ran this as a passenger depot until the 1960s. And then later it was turned into a museum in 1996. So we've been open here for 25 years already as a museum. So I'll let you kind of look around, and then we'll move on to the next room here.
Okay.
Okay. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll move on right through here. So this room is the communications room, and I'll show you a few things in here. So you can see we had a lot of different ways to communicate. So we've got a couple different kinds of telephones. We have a couple different telegraphs as well. This one is hooked up. Usually I let people come in and try that if you want to do that. And then we've got a typewriter, which of course could be used for letters and even memos, because this building was actually the headquarters for the whole line. And then there's this over here. This is a teletype, which was kind of a precursor to a fax machine. And this one is still functional. We're working on getting it hooked up to another one so we can send messages back and forth to Fort Concho. If you're visiting here in San Angelo, I highly recommend checking out Fort Concho as well. So all of these could be used to communicate between different buildings, but not to the trains. We didn't have Wi-Fi or anything like that. So if they needed to talk to a train that wasn't stopping, they would use this. So this right here is called a message stick. So they would tie a message here to let them know if there was a crash or a change in schedule, and they would stand out on the platform here and hold it up for the train to grab as they came by. And again, we have a picture of that if you'd like to see right here. All right.
Got lots of reflections on that glass there. I'm trying to get past that. Okay.
Okay, so then over on the counter here, we've got a few more items. So we've got some kind of rule books and different things that they would use back when this was an active depot. I always like to point out our pocket watch here. The pocket watch was the most important piece of equipment on a rail line. So anytime you were hired onto a rail line, you would have to buy an approved watch from an approved brand and bring it in and have it inspected to make sure it would keep time properly so you could be on the same schedule with everyone else. All right, and then here we have some rail passes. So these were given out usually to businessmen, to people who owned or worked on other rail lines so that they could travel on each other's lines for free without having to buy tickets every time. All right, so if we're ready, we'll move on through this way. So in here we have a couple things we did not have in 1910. We're very proud to have an elevator to take those up to the second floor who need it, and we have indoor plumbing now, so don't be afraid to visit. We do have bathrooms. Yes. So we'll come on through here. All right, so this is our memorial wall. So over here, you'll see the names of the people who stopped them from tearing this building down when it was no longer useful in the 80s and turned it into a museum instead. All right, and whenever you're ready, we'll come through here to the main hall.
Wonderful. One thing I was going to comment about is that this is one of the best preserved depots
Yes, it is.
that I have seen in a long, long time, especially
Yes.
in West Texas.
Yes, and we're very, very glad they preserved it. Along the wall here, you'll see some pictures of other depots that used to be on this line. Most or all of them have not been preserved, unfortunately.
Yes.
This is one of the few that is still standing and is still very much in its original form, as close as they were able to get it.
And most of them were much smaller as well.
Yes, yep, and that's because this was the headquarters, so it held the offices and conference rooms upstairs that were used by a lot of the people who worked on the lines.
I see, yes.
Yep. Yeah, so here in the main hall, you can see we have all kinds of things to look at. We have a lot of tools and equipment that they used to use back when this was an active depot. One that we're really proud of is this right here. This is our freight scale. So this is an in-ground freight scale. If you look at the floor, you'll see that square. That's where they would load up the freight and the cargo to weigh it, and then they would take it back outside and put it on the train. So that way they knew how much to charge for shipping it. And this one was in ground and used here when this was an active depot. So I'll show you a few other things around the room here. We're proud to have, like I said, all kinds of different equipment. We've got some of the china that was used on different lines here. You can see things that were used in dining cars. All right. And then we'll come this way. As I said, this was the headquarters, so they did have to send quite a bit of mail and checks and things. So they had an addressograph to be able to address those letters and be able to send them out as needed. All right, and you can see some older tools that used to be used to lay the track and maintenance the tracks here. We've got some more on this side as well. And then we have a slightly newer version when you get down here. So this was a drill that was used to drill through and actually help lay the tracks and be able to put those spikes down. And they say it took 3 men to operate this piece of equipment, and it took them about half an hour per hole that they drilled. And there were 3 per line, which was every 6 inches or so. Wow. So you can imagine it took quite a while to lay any stretch of track. Yeah. We do also have an ice box here. So down here, you would put your food. Oh. So you would have food down here, and then actual ice up in this compartment, and that was how they would keep food cool on trains before we had refrigerators.
Most of the ice boxes were made out of wood.
Yes, yep, some of them were, but they later discovered that metal would conduct the cold better and would keep it cold for longer. Yep. All right, so we've got some other things here in our cases, and then I'll show you this cart behind you when you're ready.
There's just so much to see.
Yes, we have a lot here. Usually people can take a couple of hours to look around if they want to, but we can also keep it quicker if you need it. So this here is a troubleshooting cart. So we like to have people sit in here if you'd like to. It's kind of up to each individual. But this cart was used for any kind of emergency maintenance, not a scheduled maintenance, but any kind of emergencies. If there was something on the track that shouldn't have been, or even if the train stalled, the trains could stall and they would have to take this out and kind of push and help them get going again. So this was how they would get out there and help with any emergencies. All right, and then I'll show you one more thing over here. So this right here is a model train, but this one actually ran. So this was made by a man in Abilene who just loved trains and model trains, and he wanted to drive his own. And here on the wall, we've got actually one of his wheel prototypes and all kinds of pictures and things of him building it and driving it. And again, that's a great photo opportunity. We allow people to climb in there and take pictures.
Wow, and it did actually run on steam or did
Yes.
some other type?
Yep, it was a steam engine, yes.
Wow.
Yep, which is pretty impressive if you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're ready, we'll head
About
upstairs.
What year?
So this one, I've never double checked that. I believe in the 50s, I think he built it. Yep.
Well, there were still steam engines
Yes.
around.
Yep.
I rode on one from Pecos, Texas to Midland, I believe it was.
Oh, cool.
Back in the early 50s.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. Yeah, so upstairs we've got some model trains, and we've got 3 different sizes of those. We've got the N scale, which are the smallest. We've got the HO, which is kind of a middle range, and we've got our giant O. So we've got all of those upstairs, and most of them are running today. I can get those started for you if you're ready.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's leave some mysteries for the people who are going to come here in person.
Yes.
Because I always try to encourage people to please come and visit
see
some
more
of these museums.
Yes.
So they can see them with their own eyes, see the artifacts with their own eyes, and get a longer tour than we're able to get today, and learn a whole lot more.
Yes.
I did read in the comments that are on the museum listing in Google Maps that there are activities that go on here, and specifically activities which are very appealing to children.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I believe you're talking about our second Saturday events. So every second Saturday of the month, whatever day that falls on, we have a different type of activity. So like last month, we did a reading out of a children's book that was all about San Angelo, and we learned about our town here. This month, we've got some music going on. So we'll have a gentleman inside playing some songs on his guitar. And then next month, we've got some some local people who do railroad collecting, and they'll be bringing their models and things to show those off. I think in August, we've got a Lego event, a craft that we'll be doing. So it just kind of depends on what month it is, but we've got all kinds of things every second Saturday. We also have our kiddie train. So it's kind of a smaller train that actually runs out in our parking lot, and we give rides on that to kids if they want to come out and do that as well. Yep, and then in November, we've got a big Christmas activity. So we do a big Christmas festival. Santa actually rides in on a train, and it's pretty cool to see. You're welcome to take pictures, and a lot of people usually come out for that.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Well, I know that people are going to come and visit the Fort Concho historic site, which is just a few blocks from here.
Yes.
You can actually walk from
you can.
that location to this location or vice versa. And there's other attractions in this same area.
Oh, yeah.
So, and especially for you folks that come down for 3 weeks of San Angelo rodeo activities.
Yep, there's a lot to do and see here.
Yes.
Yep, there's a lot more.
There are a few days when there's no actual rodeo events or stock show events going on.
Yep.
So make use of your free time, as I have, to come and visit some of these great places.
Yes. We are here. We're open and ready to give tours.
All right, and I will add links to the listings on Google Maps and also to your website.
Awesome.
And then I will have more information on my website as well. So people can check things out thoroughly before they come.
Awesome.
All right, well, thank you very much for taking the time to give us a brief explanation and a brief tour.
And there's a lot more to see than what I've already showed you. So definitely, if you're watching this video, come on down, because there's always more to find.
Oh, no doubt. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?
Yeah, definitely.
This is such a huge, huge railroad depot. Coming along in 1910, well, what would have driven, besides the need for office space, you said it was intended to be administration building, in addition to being a passenger depot.
Yes, and a freight depot as well.
Yes, and I suspect that the building that is close by here was probably used as a warehousing area or loading dock.
Yes, that was the extra freight space over there.
Okay, so what types of goods would have been brought in by train, offloaded, and were there like manufactured goods, or I know that sheep and goats were pretty popular
Yes.
about that time
Yeah.
in early San Angelo.
Yep.
So I suspect maybe some of those products
Yes.
from those animals were shipped out as well.
Yeah. So sheep were definitely a big part of the early San Angelo trade, and their wool, of course, and like you said, goats and their milk and things that we've got some milk jugs over there. I don't know if you saw those coming past, but that was definitely a big export. And a little bit later, cattle as well. Cattle were transported back and forth on the trains, and I mean, really just anything anyone needed to ship. This was very early as far as, you know, transportation of goods. So before then, most of the goods you could find were locally made in your town. So anything that people were making and wanted to sell somewhere else could be transported on the trains.
All right, well, what about livestock as well?
Yeah. Yep, they definitely did transport livestock as well.
Was there like a little stock yard that would have kept some of the smaller animals and perhaps even beef?
You know, I'm sure that they did have one. I'm not sure exactly where that was at this particular depot. I would guess over there with the freight depot that's across the street. But yes, I know they did transport livestock, so I'm sure they did have something somewhere. I can also show you this picture over here. It's actually a print based off of a photograph that's of some soldiers that were shipping out of this depot.
Oh yes.
Yes.
That was the next thing I was going to bring up.
Yep.
Is that
So this right here.
the lighting is terrible on that one. Let me see if I can.
Is that one better?
Yeah.
Yep, so that would have been in 1943.
Museum glass that does not reflect lighting.
Oh,
is
yes.
terribly expensive.
Yep.
So I can understand why that isn't used very often.
Yep.
Now, I know that Fort Concho, I'm pretty sure that Fort Concho had already been closed down
Yes.
by 1910.
Yes.
That was 112 years ago.
Yep. Yep.
That is remarkable. But then World War I came along.
Yep.
Was there another military base that was set up
You know,
about that time?
I don't know if they reopened Fort Concho temporarily. I know that there are several other forts around as well. Fort Chadbourne is, I mean, less than an hour away from here by car, of course. It would have been longer with other transportation methods that they had then. So I'm not sure exactly, or if this was just people traveling through, because I know that that was also a thing. They transported a lot of troops on the rail lines, even if they weren't actually stationed or gathered in that area. So this may have just been a stopover here.
Well, now there is a air base that is here
Yes,
now.
Goodfellow.
Many
Yes.
Goodfellows, correct.
Yep.
And many present-day airfields, just like the one in Amarillo, which was named English
Yep.
Airfield, actually started out as an Army
Yes, that's
airfield
correct.
because the Air
Yep.
Force had not been invented yet.
Yep.
So was Goodfellow?
I believe Goodfellow was an air base already, but they, even back then, they would have had people from different branches, so they may have come from Goodfellow.
Right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
there would have been military people coming
Yes.
in and out, primarily for training,
Yep.
education.
Yeah, so at this point, it is a training base mostly. At that point, they did fly, but it was mostly a flight training school at that time.
Ground school.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I was wondering why I hadn't seen very many military planes.
Yes, because our airfield here is no longer active. Our base here is now mostly an intelligence training base, but they do also do, they've got some marine training and some fire and rescue training there as well. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much
Yeah, of
for
course.
sharing all of this wonderful
Yeah.
information.
Yep.
And I know that you have tons more stories
Yes.
to tell and artifacts to show people.
Oh yeah, definitely come. I'll tell you a different story to every group.
All right.
Yep.
Do you normally, this appears to be a period style
Yes.
costume.
Yeah, so this is, it's based off of a walking suit, which would have been the most common for a lady who was working outside the home in 1910. So that's why I'm wearing this today. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, thank you very much
Yeah.
for bringing everything out. in
Yeah,
such a
of
wonderful
course.
manner.
Yep. Well, thank you.
You bet.